So next on our agenda is presentations. Today we have a presentation from MARTA and an update from ATL DOT. Is MARTA ready to present?
Can you hear me through the PA system? Is there someone advancing slides on my behalf, or is there a clicker that I can obtain? In the meantime, let me say thank you, Councilmember Lewis and board, for your indulgence in having us here this morning. I wanted to recognize Chair Scott and our council members, Ash, Snyder, and Mullis, who are observing remotely. And I just wanted to say thanks for this opportunity to speak to you again about MARTA and giving you an update. Next slide, please.
And one second. And you're Collie Greenwood.
I am Collie Greenwood. I am.
And I know he hasn't been here for it, but typically, that's why you haven't been here for it. Typically, I would.
Oh.
You know what I mean? Because the first thing that we ask people to do is to say their name and who they're with.
I will repeat. I'm Collie Greenwood, General Manager, CEO of MARTA.
Thank you.
If I can advance the next slide, please. What we typically try to share with you in the next slide again is an update on our ridership, workforce, and financials. And what this slide will show you is that we've been steadily increasing to the point that we are now at 60% of pre-COVID ridership, a feat that we've been steadily moving towards since the initial dip last April. Also good news on that front is the fact that as you know, at one point we were 250 drivers short for the buses. We are now at a point where we are 100% of the recruitment required for our authorized budget. So that's a huge feat on the part of the MARTA Human Resources team. Want to thank them for that. We, of course, still have a high absenteeism rate to deal with, but that's something that we have programmed the planning efforts towards. So more good news on that front. Can move to the next slide. This is the MARTA Reach pilot program. We've spoken of this at the last couple of sessions, and this is really the culmination of the analysis to date. We will conclude with a fulsome evaluation of demographics, zones, and the impact to access to employment centers, and a fulsome cost analysis, as well as opportunities for service optimization when we come in with our next generation bus network redesign program. But what this tells you is that there was a steady increase in usage for the MARTA Reach pilot program, and paying particular attention to the blue and yellow zones, which are heavily residential zones, less so in the industrial zones. But again, there's been some work in terms of how we might optimize that should we bring the program back. So good news on the Reach pilot. The next slide is really about bus shelters and amenities, and I wanted to give you a quick update on that. Again, we're committed to 50 amenities each year in this program. FY22 amenity status, there's 40 that are installed and 10 underway. We typically take about up to 3 months for the permitting process, and about a month for construction and a month for design. So it gives you a sense of how quickly these programs are moving along. But we're very pleased with the success of the bus shelters and amenities program. Here's just an example of the physical before and after, and the impact that this program has. The shelters on the east side of Delau Drive, just north of Allison Court. It serves routes 81 and 162 with 30 weekday boardings combined on average. This is a reminder, really. We always start with our sequencing phasing plan to remind people on a quarterly basis in terms of what the plan has always been with More MARTA. This sequencing plan, of course, you'll recall, was approved in June of 2019 and subsequently included in the More MARTA intergovernmental agreement in 2020. In terms of a financial snapshot, this chart will show you that over the course of all the fiscal year since 2019, we've spent $47 million, and then it breaks out where that spending has happened. More importantly, you'll see that through the course of time, we've started to increase spending on some of the key projects and reduced spending on some of the others. But this progresses through the project life cycle, and what you'll see with Summerhill is that we completed the final design, and now that that's the case, we've actually started our right-of-way acquisition efforts, and you'll start to see increased expenditures there as well with our third-party agreements as we advance utility work and it starts to progress. To assist with these expenditures, of course, there's funding required. So you'll see here just a few examples of the state funding requests that we've made in FY24, which essentially align with the requirements of the state, namely safety, customer experience, and multimodal connectivity. So the one on the left is the K9 facility, allows us to remove the double-wide trailers that our dogs are currently stored in. The smart restrooms we're all aware of, where we're making efforts to make sure that all 38 stations are equipped with these smart restrooms. Airport station rehab, just bringing new design and fresh facilities to the most connected station that we have when it comes to connecting with the airport. And of course, our 5 Points Nexus station with the rehab and platform efforts there. We really wanted to spend some time talking about the engagement efforts that we've undertaken here at MARTA. You may recall that there were some concerns about the level of consistency across projects when it comes time to engaging with the public. So we wanted to make sure that we develop the materials and the methods that we use to engage and keep them consistent. And we feel that we've made some really good improvements in that area. So this first one is talking about the event that we held at Oakland City Station on November 5th. Council members Lewis and Dozier were there, and I actually want to give a shout out to Council Member Dozier for some excellent photographs and posting, much better than the ones that we had, so thank you for that. Anyway, it was a good success. So we were able to hear a lot from people that were engaged with us. But the point here is that we're taking steps to make sure that there's social media training with all of our consulting teams to make sure that they achieve the desired result. Our new MARTA 2040 section is online at itsmarta.com. That'll go live in December. The new general planning consulting contract requires that if you're working with MARTA, you have to work with MARTA staff to develop all new brand standards for all external facing materials on MARTA capital projects. So that goes live in February. So again, it's a move to making sure that we're consistent and quality focused when we roll out engagement materials for the community. These are the first of several engagement efforts on land use around station areas along the Campbellton Corridor, and in early 23, we'll have events at Deloe Avenue, Greenbrier Mall, and others. Other engagement efforts include this one at, this engagement effort where we had about 150 attendees on the Clifton Corridor, and so we were able to update the public on our work to date, obtain feedback from them, including the things that they're interested in, such as making sure that alignments are terminating at Avondale Station, part of the original plan, as opposed to Decatur Station. And they were encouraged by the 3 remaining alternatives that we are shaping and bringing back in terms of a recommended LPA in late January, early February. We've also got engagement going on 5 Points, so the public engagement on high-level concepts is ongoing. This virtual and public open houses were held on October 18th. About 119 people attended. Pop-up engagements were held at all of the end-of-line stations, and there's a continuous feedback being collected at 5pointstransformation.com. When it comes to Streetcar East, we were also collecting public feedback in this venue. You can see here that we had a round of public updates on the 30% design held in September of 2022. We had September 12th in-person attendance of 118 people and a virtual attendance on the 13th of 243 people. Really, folks are particularly interested in preserving access to the neighborhood and businesses, making sure that safety is assured, and wondering about mitigations for any economic impacts of the construction, noise, and et cetera. And of course, there's good progress on the projects themselves. So in this case, there's Summerhill, and it's really bringing to bear the fact that there are about 14 offers remaining to bring to the board, and we'll be bringing those to the board in December. Other than that, 48 of the 62 properties have been approved, and we're offering right-of-way acquisition packages as we speak. The procurement package is advertised on the website effective today, and it'll be live on the AJC in December, as of December 5th. The bid date remains January 23rd of next year, and I'm happy to report that the utility construction has started yesterday with the Department of Watershed Management moving along in that regard. Other project progress includes those that are transitioning to final design. So we've got Bankhead, Cleveland Ave Metropolitan, Streetcar East, and Five Points. Lots of good work being done there. Bankhead and Cleveland were earlier this week approved by the PGC to move into final design. And you can see the 5 points. We're continuing to collaborate with Central Atlanta Progress and the City of Atlanta to make sure that the selection comes in ready by February. And in terms of the planning phase, Campbellton Community Investment Corridor was approved for entry into the CIG just last week, which really makes it eligible to compete for federal funding programs in the future. So just a look at the next few months very quickly in terms of what's happening. You can see in December we're getting the BRT bid ready, completion of the DWM water main relocations. January has us opening the bid for the Summerhill BRT with proposals along with RFP and Clifton Corridor public meetings, and then in February bringing to the board some approval items to make sure that we're ready to continue with the momentum. So you can see that there's a lot of momentum building at MARTA with the projects that we're working on. And I just want to point out that there's also a lot of city building going on as well in the area of transit-oriented development. We've got some completed projects here. There's Marshawn at King Memorial and Quill at Edgewood Park Candler. Quill actually received the ARC Innovative Development Award, and I'm happy to report that both of these installments are 93% leased already. So there's supply, but there's also demand. When it comes to those awarded and in negotiation, we can see that North Avenue is still in negotiation to determine how to integrate affordable housing within the mixed-use tower, including office and hotel. So we're working with our partners in the mayor's office in that regard. And on Bankhead, that was awarded in September, and we're happy to report there that it's a mixed income residential installment with 495 units. 30% of them set aside as affordable, with 80 to 120% of the zip code AMI. Also in procurement, we've got the Art Center Station. Those developer proposals are due for RFP on December 15th. And Oakland City, as discussed earlier, we held the engagement session there. We're working with Atlanta Housing on language for developers to accept housing vouchers consistent with the council members' draft legislation. Other projects in planning, we've got HE Homes. We've also got other wins to speak of, if you'll recall, with the Goldman Sachs partnership with MARTA at the south end of our Skyline project at the south end of the Summerhill BRT. So again, just to remind everyone, that's a 250 unit installment, and Goldman Sachs had originally pledged $90 to $100 million, and they went ahead and doubled that commitment to $200 million at the site of the south terminal of our upcoming BRT. There's also more good news on the horizon. I just wanted to remind everyone of the invitations have been emailed to everyone, but it's on December 16th at 10 a.m. at South Yard College Park. Just come on out and help us celebrate the progress involved in our new CQ400 rail cars. So the image on the left is the artist concept. Of course, the image on the right is the actual first body of our new rail car. So it's alive and well, and we're inviting you to come out and see it. And finally, for all the expansion and the new fleet and the city building going on at MARTA, I keep saying that we remain a transit company first, with employees as our most valuable resource. And we earlier this year changed or made an adaptation to our vision statement, which was taking people where they want to go today and tomorrow. The vision statement now is people, taking people where they want to go today and tomorrow, which really unlocks a suite of attention and support for the 4,500 men and women that make MARTA work. In this case, I just wanted to bring attention to the Adamsville native Coy Dumas on his 50-year anniversary of driving a bus at MARTA. So I won't say too much. I'll let the film speak for itself.
Greatness.
Impeccable.
Absolutely professional.
I had to stand up and applaud him. A leader. That's Mr. Dumas.
For those who've had the pleasure of working with Coy Dumas, these accolades don't go far enough. The Adamsville native has the distinction of serving as a MARTA bus operator for 50 years. He's driven over 2 million miles on these streets. Yes, he is still driving, and no, he hasn't retired.
I remember driving what we call the 200, the 400, and 500 series buses. The bus width may have been about this wide. And they were supposed to be automatic buses. And when you take it out of neutral, you had to come all the way back to reverse to get it to go to drive. It's like driving a stick. So let's just say I don't miss those buses.
Dumas lovingly recalls the peculiar looks he would often get from some passengers who would pause before stepping inside.
They say, son, are you old enough to drive a bus? I said, yes, ma'am, I think I'll be all right.
Dumas was more than all right. He would cruise through a staggering 5 decades while helping countless others along the way.
He comes in here and he never complains. He comes in day out, he trains new people. He's been a great teacher to me since I came to MARTA in 05.
Ryan Van Sickle is a director of technical services and service planning for MARTA. He was a student at Georgia Tech and remembers catching the number 2 bus on Ponce de Leon.
He was just so put together and in command and control of that bus. Every time I've seen him, he just carries that confidence and authority.
An authority that has garnered him praise, but most importantly, respect. Dumas has witnessed it all, the evolution of MARTA and his beloved city of Atlanta, even during the Civil Rights Movement. Those experiences provided an important historical context that he shares during the annual King Day event. Co-worker Julius Thomas also takes part.
He and I, in tandem, take the Rosa Parks bus to the King Center in various places, Norfolk Southern, and different places that require one have you. And he, because he's a replica of the operator during that time, and I provided the oral history, so I appreciated that.
Dumas says he feels a profound sense of responsibility for this work. He considers it a calling.
We carry the most valuable cargo you can imagine. That's human life.
Over the years, Dumas has had many opportunities to serve MARTA in other positions, but he turned them down, opting rather to stay in the role he describes as a frontline trooper. He's seen it all over the years. He even met his wife, Teresa, while on the job.
This lady still gets up with me at 2:30 in the morning, every morning.
As for retirement,
As long as God graced me, I want to hang in here, but I do, with my wife and I negotiate. I put it like that.
2 million miles, 50 years, #1 operator. We celebrate Coy Dumas.
To find someone who has shown the loyalty, commitment, and longevity that Mr. Dumas has over the past 50 years, well, that's rare indeed. I want to thank him for his incredible dedication and service, and we celebrate all he's done for MARTA and for the countless customers he's moved through Metro Atlanta over the past 50 years.
Coy Dumas, we congratulate you on 50 years of service to MARTA, to the Atlanta region, and to your beloved patrons. Your grace and dedication to your profession is unmatched. Thank you.
So I want to end it with that because it's just a reminder that it's the people that count, the people that we carry, and the people that carry them for us. And Mr. Dumas, this is a wonderful representation of that. We say it's about taking people where they want to go today and tomorrow. Mr. Dumas will remind us that he's been doing it since yesterday. So public congratulations to Mr. Dumas. Thanks to all of you for your indulgence, and turn it back to you, Councilmember Lewis.
That was beautiful. But also to hear you hired 250 people. That's amazing work to come into Atlanta and to take over the reins when you took it over, and to see you grow that way. Your HR department deserves a huge round of applause.
They do. Thank you.
Colleagues, are there any questions? We'll start off with Councilmember Jason Dozier.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for your presentation, Mr. Greenwood. I appreciate that. I had a couple questions. The first one was about ridership recovery with the chart that you showed where we're about 60% of what we were prior to the pandemic. I guess my first question related to that is, how are we doing compared to other cities that are also struggling to get back to 100%?
Yeah, we're at the top end of average in terms of agencies of our size. So there are a couple of outliers that have bounced back a little bit quicker, but for the most part, we're doing better than most in our size segment.
Have you seen a difference in recovery based on whether it's by train or by bus, or how does that look?
Yeah, I won't go back to it, but trains suffered the biggest hit at the initial outset. The subway suffered the largest hit, and it's steadily come back to the point where both the bus and the subway are submerging or converging on 2.6 million monthly rides. So they're about even now. So it's back to 50-50.
And I realized that was a dumb question because it was on your slide.
No, it's a great question. It's a great question. It's worth repeating. Yeah.
I appreciate that. I guess the other question then I have is I know that MARTA has different archetypes of riders where you have your office commuters, you have folks that are going to Falcons games. How has that recovery looked like based on your choice riders versus, I don't know if y'all have done that level of analysis, but I imagine people are still taking a train to get to Atlanta United matches, but maybe not so much for office use because of telecommute. Have you seen any sort of difference?
Absolutely. So that kind of analysis is ongoing as ridership continues to come back, but we were encouraged to see that early days special events riders were surging back. So on special events days, our trains were packed. The office commuter, the 9 to 5, that is the one that we're continuing to chase because as you pointed out, there's a lot of remote working going on. There's some people that have managed to work elsewhere. So the origins and destinations are still subject to further review. The essential riders, folks that are taking it to hospitals and places of employment, some of our more industrial locations, those riders have been strong throughout the pandemic. So that's more stable. It's really the riders that are commuting for the daily grind, 9 to 5.
Thank you. And then just thinking back to buses, how are we looking on the bus route redesign work that's been ongoing?
The bus, the bus network redesign?
Yes.
Yeah, so we'll bring that back to our board in January. We've held the website open for customer engagement and input, bringing that back to the board in January. So that's when we go wheels up on that process. About a year from now, the refined network will be in place. That's our plan after cutting and going back to the community with further engagements, making sure that we've brought the concept of reach into the fray to the best of our ability if it's feasible. and making sure that the efficiencies that we want, as well as the ridership versus reach coverage concept has been taken into account. About a year from now is when we'll be announcing that it's back on track.
Will it be a year from now that the proposal will be made public, or a year from now as far as implementation?
Our goal is a year from now to have it implemented,
Okay.
or at least to begin the implementation. The public engagement will have been concluded by then.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And then my last question, just out of curiosity, with the new rail cars that are coming, what happens to our existing fleet? And whether or not, I was curious too, is whether or not our existing fleet was compatible with the new trains, recognizing I imagine over time we'll do a one-for-one replacement, but I didn't know what does that look like logistically?
No, it's a great question. That we have to be careful in terms of how we retire the old trains, but they are compatible. They will share the line at the same time as we transition over the course of 6 or 7 years, in fact, to bring the entire fleet up to the CQ400.
Okay. That was it. I yield.
Our next speaker is Councilmember Alex Wong.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Mr. Underwood, thank you for the presentation. Great information in here. My first question is regard to the financial snapshot, specifically around the Streetcar East line item. I'm surprised to see that dollar number, $6.7 million, all in planning. Is that correct? I mean, I'm looking at Summerhill BRT, and you've started splitting out design. It just looks eye-popping to me.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
6.7 million is the total amalgam over each of those fiscal years. But yeah, there is a lot of planning and work involved in bringing us to the point where we can make those decisions. So I mean, I can ask Carrie to come up and give you some more details about what's gone into that spending, but it really is the CPMO and the more MARTA prioritization work that's gone on. We've relied heavily on resources to get us to this point.
So when are we going to start seeing design dollars, and what's the level of magnitude on that?
I don't know, Carrie, can you speak to that?
So to clarify, you're specifically asking about
You'll
streetcar.
identify yourself.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Carrie Rocha. Sorry. Carrie Rocha, I'm the Assistant General Manager of the Centralized Program Management Office. You're specifically asking about Streetcar East?
Yeah.
So on the Streetcar East project, we are very close to moving into the final design phase. So we've had the 30% plans that have come back. We received comments, and we've gone back and revised those plans. There's a number of things we're kind of working through, whether they're scope items that are absolutely necessary for the project. That will move into the final design phase. We anticipate bringing that to PGC probably next month.
Okay. Any thoughts on the magnitude of dollar amounts that would, again, if I would imagine the next time we see this, that Streetcar East will have a design line item to cover that. That's separate, right?
It will not probably next quarter, right? It's going to be sometime because we are procuring the final
gotcha. Okay.
designer for that.
So maybe the quarter after that. So what are we anticipating the dollar amount for that?
In terms of final design, I mean, we typically use anywhere between 8 to 12% of the construction value. So whatever, I don't recall offhand what that construction value is, but I can get that to you. It's just a lot of money to be still in planning and not even moving into design. And I'm looking at some of the others. I understand why the dollar numbers are high, but that one in particular just feels like we should have already been in design. Okay, thanks. And then my second question, or it's really more, it's a comment / question. It's about the Clifton Corridor, which is in my district. First, I want to just commend y'all for the public engagement and outreach process. I mean, I've heard nothing but solid comments and feedback about just appreciating the fact that you've been out in the community holding these hearings and doing online sessions. And I'm really also glad to see the turnout on it. In terms of the 3 alternatives that are going forward, I'm surprised that there's still a light rail option when it seems like the overwhelming community support or interest now is in the BRT. Is that just because you got to make sure that's still on the table before you make the final call?
It speaks to the objectivity of the process.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes
January, February will come down to 1, and we'll see what what that ends up being.
Okay, and then I'm also just assuming the internal decision process just factors in cost, time, feasibility, implementation, federal support, and all that. Correct?
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, like I said, appreciate the level of effort you've done. Again, just want to echo that all I'm hearing now is BRT, and I commend y'all for kind of learning from the Campbellton engagement or lack thereof, and doing it right this time, because and setting the new model in terms of how you get feedback and then take that feedback into consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. The next speaker is Councilmember Matt Westmoreland.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning. Thank you for coming. One question, then one request, and it builds on what Councilmember Juan just asked about. I know that it will vary for every project, but to the extent possible, when looking at a total project budget, what is the best industry standard, best thinking around how much is spent on planning, how much is spent in the design phase, and how much is spent on construction?
Yeah, I don't, Carrie, do you have numbers to that effect, the order of magnitude?
So as you noted, it's obviously based on the complexity of the project. It's also based on how many alternatives we look at, right? So sometimes we set out to do planning, typically 2 to 4% of a construction project cost, not the total project cost. And, again, if you're looking at many, many different alternatives and got this very broad range, it could be higher than that. For design, we typically use 8 to 12%, so that's a big variance there. And then finally, for program and construction management, we typically use 5 to 8%.
Okay, so I want to drill down on Bankhead, and I'm going to use, so my request at the end of this is to go back to the More MARTA Atlanta Program Monthly Progress Report that we received in March of 22 and ask for it to be updated with November 30th, 2022 numbers and sent this way. So, and anybody else who wants to look at it, so we can see what things look like 6 months later. And then using the numbers from March, the Bankhead total project is $63 million, according to this document. So talk to the extent you can about the $3.2 million that's already been spent on planning and how that aligns with the percentages that you just mentioned.
Correct. So actually yesterday with the PGC, which is our program governance committee with the City of Atlanta and MARTA, we did move into final design and locked in that 30% total project cost. I think it was roughly $71 million. Now that 71 is not the construction value. The 71 representative of that, I believe it's around 40 million is the actual construction cost. So the planning costs on that are high. It has been something we have been looking at. There were multiple alternatives looked at for Bankhead because there were, we wanted to make sure we were not precluding ourselves from TOD around that station. So we wanted to make sure that the different alternatives that were considered didn't preclude the development in the future. There were a number of different tail track alignments that we looked at as well.
You've mentioned the number of potential designs a couple times as being a reason for high costs. How do we make that decision? Like, whether it's Clifton is a pretty good example. How many designs were there at the very beginning of the process? How many are there now? And then why do we start with that many options at the beginning if it drives up costs to the extent that it sounds like it does?
Well, if you think of planning like a funnel, there's the whole range of alternatives. You want to look at all the possible alignments, and then you kind of narrow those based on a number of different factors. The technical factors, how quickly you can execute, how much the project costs, public engagement and public input, which is very strong, safety, operational considerations. Typically, you'll get yourself down to about 2 to 3 options that you kind of then move forward with. We're finding ourselves going to multiple more options because the public has asked for it, right? And leadership has asked for it. So I'll use 5 Points as an example. There were a number of different concepts that were fleshed out in the very beginning, and then others come to the table and ask us to look at those. And we feel it's responsible to go back and look at those.
All right, my last rabbit hole question. In the planning and designing and construction buckets, and there might be more, tell me if there are, how many folks, partners, firms, entities are we engaging with during each of those processes? Like how many people are sitting at a table around planning on a specific project, and then how does that change into design and construction?
Sure, there are a ton of folks that are engaged in projects, from planning, as you mentioned, design, construction, right-of-way acquisition, utilities, safety and security certification, which is a big portion of our cost because we do have to certify every project. I'm probably missing some of the topics, but you've got different groups that actually engage at different stages of the project, and then you have some folks that engage throughout the life of the project, like your project management team.
So with the Bankhead 3.2 million, and then I'm done, how many different entities do we think that $3.2 million has gone to?
That'd be hard for me to guess, but I would use the planning consultants, the internal MARTA team. You've got your safety folks that have been engaged from the beginning. You've got, trying to think of, I can certainly get you the list.
That'll be my second. So my first ask is the March 2022 report updated with November numbers, and then only because it's at the top of the list and it's where I started, if it would be interesting to see how that 3.2 million has been spent so far.
Absolutely.
Just as like
I
an
can get you that.
illustrative example.
I'll get you that detail.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. I'll say I've never said I'll be done before, so I'll tell Councilmember Overstreet to take the latitude and have fun. Next up.
What an introduction. Thank you. Just a few questions. First of all, congratulations.
Thank you.
So happy to have you as no longer interim. And because I know we've had huge conversations about my priorities and just our ridership and our opportunities to grow equity across transportation here in Atlanta. And I am hoping and praying that we will be exercising everything we talked about. A couple things that come to mind as you all were speaking just a few moments ago. Well, first of all, I would like to go ahead on and weigh in that, you know, these are a whole lot of costs. So I'm trying to get the bad in first. These are a lot of costs that I'm not comfortable with, seriously, as a taxpayer myself here in Atlanta, and as a transportation justice advocate. I'm not comfortable with these upfront costs when we still have no dirt moving. I just really want us to pay attention to that kind of spending. Right. I'm not comfortable with it. But, you know, back to where I was. I heard a few things that are, you know, concerning. I definitely have been really clear about exploring options for Campbellton Road. I do actually love the investment project that I was shown maybe a couple, I don't know, 8 weeks ago, it feels like, so a couple months ago. And I really feel like it will be transformational if we indeed stick to that plan. I've since had conversations with the powers that be at like Greenbrier Mall, the Hendon Properties, and in search of where could the super station be for Campbellton Road. And they've told me that even though I've spoken for the last 3 years about transportation being an important issue and transportation-oriented development being an important issue around that Greenbrier area and that portion of Campbellton, that they've not heard from MARTA at all. And so that's concerning to me. And then I hear that you all actually put in more options for exploratory reasons for other areas. And I've asked for a wireless high occupancy transportation option other than BRT, and the research with that, and I've not had that added. And I want to know, how are you all deciding how, what to research in order for your decisions to be made?
Right. Thank you, Council Member. I mean, Greenbrier Hub is not abandoned. It's still on the list as a viable option. It's something that just has to be shaped in the life cycle of project planning. So it's not, if they haven't been reached out to at this point, that's not to say that that's not on the list. It's just the maturation of the process. So I wouldn't take no contact to mean that there's no future at Greenbrier Mall. When it comes to, wireless trams, I believe was the question. I remember us having a conversation some time ago, and at the follow-up council meeting, Manjit Renu was able to provide slides and an update in terms of what the results of that investigation were. So I'll make sure that we go back and gather that information and place it in front of you, just in case it's possible you weren't there, or it's possible that for whatever reason the package didn't get to you. But I'll make sure that we have an opportunity to discuss that fully.
No,
And,
so I know it wasn't presented to all of the community, correct?
Correct.
Right, that's what I mean.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah,
No, it was-
because like you did for Clifton Corridor, I want to make sure that the options that are available to choose from are actually
Consistent.
options.
That's right. So we have not provided wireless trams as an option in any of our projects. We looked at it, got back to you about why we're not moving forward with that, and being consistent across our brand, we haven't offered that as an option in any of the projects.
Okay. So, my huge concern, and because at the end of the day, my priority is the investment, because the transit-oriented development, I think, would be transformational for, or transformative for the Campbellton corridor. Campbellton connects in so many ways with Douglas and Union City and City of South Fulton and East Point and College Park and all of those areas that are south where we are lacking, really strong grid transportation. I just want to make sure that we are doing the best that we can to provide something that is going to transform into the future of transportation. I feel like I feel stalled in a way, and I don't want to feel stalled, and I don't feel encouraged by the lack of options because when we talk about transit-oriented development, I know you all are mentioning Oakland City, which is at the tip of Campbellton Road, right? So there's 6.5 miles going west of the city of Atlanta that's not included in transit-oriented development.
So let me say, you're right. Oakland City is on the corridor. It does benefit the people of Campbellton Road, but corridor development, transit-oriented development doesn't begin and end with Oakland City. There's more to be done. There's more development to be done, and we continue to keep that as a priority. It's, again, I'll sort of reiterate, the fact that it's not one of our top projects today doesn't mean it's not happening or that it won't happen.
So even though I saw forecasts, for, quite a few years to come, I want to know what priority means to you then.
Oh, it means, how do I say this? Projects that make sense, projects that are inspiring and build the community and move towards MARTA's vision are a priority. And then you start to shape your priorities with availability, resources, land acquisition, all those tangible things that make it competitive or not competitive. If it's not competitive today, perhaps land acquisition and permitting in the future builds it up to a more competitive status. So priorities continue to shift, but the strongest competitive projects that meet these needs remain at the top. As you've recognized in the past, funds are not infinite. So, we do have to focus on the ones in front of us that make sense, that have all the support and infrastructure and funding available and move forward and demonstrate progress as a whole. That's not to say that we don't, turn our attention when the time comes to these other areas and these other projects that need to be developed. We just can't do it all at once.
I understand, but I do know that sometimes the low-hanging fruit isn't the best way forward. Sometimes it's not.
Yeah,
And sometimes the need is greater where the lift is harder. So, and I think Campbellton is just that. I think it's a heavy lift where the need is great. So you have to really dig in and make it a true priority in order for it to come to fruition in the best way. Transit-oriented development throughout, the actual superstation being chosen in a specific area, and we're moving forward with that.
Thank you, Council Member.
Okay, so you hear me?
I hear you, absolutely.
I hear you. Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. And I first want to say thank you, congratulations, Mr. Greenwood, on being permanent. I think this is your first time coming to us
I think
since
you're
that
right.
has happened. So
Thank you, Mr. Lewis.
congratulations.
Thank you.
I will say that everything I've come to you've attacked full force. You've answered straight. You've been a straight shooter. And so I think that the things that she talked to you about, I think you're going to get done. But I will say that I came to you about the gondola as well, or gondola. I may say it wrong, the aerial transport. And I want to say that I would caution we look at Austin and the wire proposal, because it's like a moving sidewalk. It's much less expensive and comparable to light rail system. And I'm okay with you spending more money on planning. That's because we asked more questions, right?
Right.
So you spent more money because we asked more questions. In June, we ran into each other in DC, or whenever we were in DC together. I asked that same exact question that Councilmember Overstreet is asking you again today. I explained, I said the name wrong again, gondola or gondola.
No, I get it. Gondola, yeah.
Yep, but that's the thing that we want. And that would, if it's two council members that are talking about this aerial steel, that's the name of it, council member. If it's two council members talking about it, that may be the locally preferred option. If you come tell us about it.
We will.
So thank you. I like spending more money in planning, but we want our piece of planning done on our side too.
We'll investigate gondolas as an alternative. I don't want to commit to a lengthy, expensive investigation, but let's come back to you with some, first blush responses in terms of what gondolas would mean at MARTA, and then, you can be a part of the conversation about how much further we look at it.
So once again, I'm the one person who didn't complain about you spending money on planning. I want you to invest in it. I get you. Like, that's two of the three council members who touched that district that are saying that, and I'm sure I'll speak to Keisha Waits and I'll see if she feels the same. So that, to me, that's the locally, that should be considered in the locally preferred option, because we 3/4. And I haven't talked to him about it yet, but I'm sure he would probably want to hear some planning about that, because I've been asking about it since June, and she started as well. So, but I appreciate you.
Thank you very much.
Are there any other questions? I appreciate you so much.
Okay, thanks,
you.
Councilmember.
Move to our regularly scheduled, well, first, ADOT is not going to, right? Okay, ATL DOT, and then, so ATL DOT is supposed to give us a presentation today of the Cascade Road Complete Street Project. Can we have someone come up, please? Thank you.
Good morning, Marsha Anderson Bomar, Interim Commissioner of ATL DOT. I just wanted to check with Councilmember Overstreet. I had shared some information, and she was determining whether she wanted the presentation today. Wanted to check to see if you wanted the presentation today or if you wanted some additional time for our discussion.
That was the discussion I was having. I got to tell you, I'm very frustrated about all of this, to be honest. And yes, I would like a presentation, but it shouldn't be today. because I have to have a couple more conversations because I just received this information. And I am going to need a little more time. So
Happy to meet with you separately and find
Yeah.
out what additional information you need.
yeah, because of my frustration at this point, I don't want to give the wrong reaction to everything. I want to definitely look at everything the right way and come back. I think that'll be the best thing to do. When you do come back with a presentation, if we could have illustrations, something that I can follow, and we would have had an in-person meeting beforehand. Unfortunately, it's not going to be you, is it?
No, I'm still here for a while.
Okay, I'm like, because we're working together now.
I know, we're going to get this done. We'll get this done.
So, yeah, and I'm okay with coming back to it.
Okay. We'll connect and get the rest of your questions, the information put together, and then be prepared for the next.
Right.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
And I got to run a better meeting than that because the speaker didn't come up. I'm gonna run a better meeting next time, y'all. We're gonna keep going to the next, move to our regularly scheduled agenda.
Section G, ordinance for second reading, item number 1, 22-01837, an ordinance by Transportation Committee authorizing the mayor or designee on behalf of the city of Atlanta to enter into an operation and maintenance agreement with Atlanta Airlines Terminal Company covering the operation and maintenance of certain facilities used to perform aircraft de-icing located at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport, waiving 2-1187 of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances and for other purposes.
Please, anything from the airport?
Good morning, Mr. Vice Chair and members. B.B. Odari, Airport General Manager. Currently, we have two de-icing facility that is operated by AATC on behalf of the airline. We are adding a third de-icing facility. This is a $150 million construction that is about to be completed, and this facility will go in full revenue service at the end of December. So we want to add this to the two that we already have into one O&M agreement on behalf of the airline and assign it to AATC.
And we have a question, Councilmember Alex Wan.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. The caption and one of the the be it ordained section references waiving the code, but there's no explanation of what and why. Could someone give me that background, please?
Good morning, Vivica Brown, Department of Law. It's my understanding that this contract is being let directly to AATC. There is no competitive procurement allowed or provided here. And so based on Mr. Biodori's explanation, it makes sense to do that. And so therefore, technically, it is a waiver of the code.
So why is that not in the legislation? It just says waive it. It doesn't say why, it doesn't say what reason or what specific.
We're happy to adjust the legislation.
So is this a sole source then? Is that if it's direct contracting?
No, it's just a waiver of the code. There could be others that could provide the service. However, I think the department has explained that it makes more sense to allow AATC to do the work.
And I'm not opposing this. And then the other piece is we're just having them operate it, or the de-icing, but there's no funds associated with it. Is that correct?
That's correct, Councilmember Wan. The airline will bore 100% cost to operate during the de-icing season. During non-de-icing season, it's a common use facility that will revert back to us to use as appropriate.
All right, I'm going to move approval on condition of a substitute ordinance on Monday that adds information about the waiver. And Mr. Vice Chair, I might give you a chance to have something not on consent so you can report it out. That's my motion.
It's been moving properly second. Please open the vote.
The vote is open.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
Vote is closed. 5 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable on condition. Item number 2, 22-01837, 1838, an ordinance by Transportation Committee amending the FY23 Airport Renewal and Extension Fund budget by adding to anticipations and appropriations of grant funds in the amount of $26,853,067.00 from the Federal Aviation Administration to amend the FY23 Passenger Facility Charge Fund budget by transferring to and from appropriations in the amount of $8,951,022.00 for the City of Atlanta's share for the Federal Aviation Administration Grant Agreement 3-13-8-130-2022 for the purpose of reconstruction of taxi shoulder pavement taxiways B, E, F, M, and N, and for other purposes.
The airport have anything on this?
In September of this year, the FAA awarded us $26.8 million grant. The other $8.9 million is the 25% local matching, and this grant money will be used on airfield shoulder work. So we're seeking approval for the matching fund.
So move. It's been moving properly second. The seconder was Councilmember Alex Wan. Please open the vote, Mr. Johnson.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 5 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable. Item number 3, 22-01839, an ordinance by Transportation Committee to amend the FY 2023 Airport Customer Facility Charge Fund budget by transferring to and from appropriations in the amount of $1,500,000.00 to reimburse rental car operators for construction of approved projects and for other purposes.
Anything from the airport?
So ever so often, we do a reallocation of the rental car usage in the facility, and when we move rental car agencies around, we authorize them to do minor construction work to suit their operational purpose. They have finished that work in 2020 to late 2021, and this is to reimburse them for that construction work, a total of about 1.5 to the various rental car companies.
So move. It's been moving properly second by Councilmember Matt Westmoreland. Please open the vote. Mr. Johnson, please.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 5 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable. Item number 4, 22-01840, an ordinance by Transportation Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee on behalf of the Atlanta Department of Transportation to apply and accept for grant funding from the Georgia Department of Transportation for the 2023 Local Maintenance Improvement Grant for the purpose of resurfacing certain City of Atlanta streets in the amount of $4,563,076.09 and for other purposes.
And anything from the department first?
Good morning. Ibrahim Abu Saud with the Interim Deputy Commissioner with Atlanta DOT Capital Projects. This legislation is to accept Georgia Department of Transportation grant funds for LMAG, or in other words of Local Maintenance Improvement Grant. Georgia DOT provides these funds annually based on population and total tax collected and total mileage.
I got a couple of questions myself, and I'll open it up for my colleagues. First, how were the streets selected?
The list of projects is included based on specific evaluation criteria, which is involving visiting the sites, looking to very collective data that's provided by the consultant to determine the quality of the pavement, and we call it PSI. And then based on the amount of money allocated to each district.
Two more questions. One is there an opportunity to amend the streets selected in the list? And the other one is, do you know which streets exactly were chosen?
Yes, there is an opportunity for us to meet with each one of you and talk about the list of projects that's available. as long as we'll talk about what makes sense, like I said, the amount of money allocated for each district and the type of project.
Part of the reason why I asked that question is because we can partner up and fix areas a little bit better if we're working in conjunction with the state. They aren't just choosing places. So the next question is from Councilmember Jason Dozier.
I figured it out. I yield.
Any other questions? Well, 1 second. We got two more people they need a second for this because we're happy and we're excited about this potential partnership. We just don't like people just doing it right in our area. So the next question is from Councilmember Alex Wan.
All right, so remind me of the process. Right now, it's simply the application process, and if we're awarded in 2023, then we'll have another council action that accepts the money and then basically authorizes the project, right?
Yes, so the process is we submit an application annually and giving these information that I just stated, number of mileage and population and tax collected, and then GDOT will allocate amount of funds for each local government. Then that's already been done for 2023.
Right.
So the next question is just which projects, and we go to procurement selecting the contractor.
This paper only is simply to submit the funding request to GDOT. It's not to receive the funding, correct?
This application to accept the funds.
Oh, it is to accept?
Yes.
That's not what the legislation says. This is hereby authorized to apply for and if awarded, accept the funding. My question is tangential to that. If I recall, the ability or opportunity for us to work with the departments in terms of maybe a swap of a street or whatever is in that next action, right? It's not specifically tied to this piece of legislation.
That's correct.
Okay, that's what I want to make sure. So we have a little bit of time to work with y'all to make some adjustments if appropriate.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Councilmember Overstreet, how you feeling? Okay.
Move approval.
It's been moving properly second, moved by Councilmember Matt Westmoreland, second by Councilmember Wan. Please open the vote, Mr. Johnson, please.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 4 yeas, 1 abstention. This item is favorable. Item number 5, 22-01841, an ordinance by Transportation Committee authorizing the mayor as designee on behalf of the Atlanta Department of Transportation to accept and apply a grant from the National Center for Safe Routes to School to amend the fiscal year 2023 budget by adding to anticipations and appropriations in the amount not to exceed $10,000.00 to increase the budget amount authorized for the National Center for Safe Routes to School pilot project, to authorize the mayor as designee to enter into agreements with the National Center for Safe Routes to School for grant acceptance and implementation and for other purposes.
So move. That's my alma mater middle school right there. I'm excited about this. Mr. Johnson, please open the vote. It's been moving properly second by Councilmember Matt Westmoreland.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 5 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable. Item number 6, 22-01879, an ordinance by Councilmember Alex Wan to allow a sidewalk waiver issued by the Director of the Office of Zoning and Development per Section 16-06-011, subsection 6 of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances for application BB-202-10823, 772 Piedmont Way Northeast, to provide that in lieu thereof constructing that requires sidewalks at the name waiver site between 929 and 961 Cumberland Road Northeast. The application listed herein shall pay $2,793.92 into the District 6 Sidewalk Fund and for other purposes, and the department requests that this item be held.
Been moving properly second by Councilmember Matt Westmoreland. Please open the vote, Mr. Johnson, please.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 5 yeas, 0 nays. This item is held. Item number 7, 22-01881. An ordinance by council members Amir Faroki, Jason H. Winston, Byron Amos, Jason Dozier, Liliana Bakhtiari, Alex Swan, Howard Shook, Mary Norwood, Dustin Hillis, Andrea L. Boone, Marcy Collier Overstreet, Antonio Lewis, Michael Julian Bond, Matt Westmoreland, and Keisha Shawn Waits, authorizing the mayor as designee to accept grant awards funds and amend the FY 2023 intergovernmental grant fund budget by adding to anticipations and appropriations from the United States Department of Transportation for the Rebuilding American Infrastructure and Sustainability and Equity Grant in an amount not to exceed $900,000.00 for the funding of a planning study for the Stitch, and to authorize the mayor or his designee to enter into agreements with the United States Department of Transportation, Federal Highway Administration, and the Georgia Department of Transportation for implementation of grant acceptance and participation and for other purposes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will make a motion to move this piece of legislation forward on condition that we iron out whatever outstanding issues we have around account strings before Monday's meeting.
It's been moving properly second by Councilmember Juan. Mr. Johnson, please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 5 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable on condition. This takes us to Section H, resolution. Mr. Vice Chair, if there is no objection from the committee, can we take items 8 through 11, 13 through 15, 17 and 18 together as a block? These legislative items are all for the installation of traffic calming devices.
No objection.
Item number 8, 22R4698, a resolution by Councilmember Antonio Lewis requesting the mayor's designee to install traffic calming devices on Dill Avenue from Sylvan Road Southeast to Allen Avenue Southeast and for other purposes. Item number 9, 22R4699, an ordinance by Councilmember Antonio Lewis requesting the mayor or his designee to install traffic calming devices on Langston Avenue from Catherwood Drive Southwest to Birch Street Southwest and for other purposes. Item number 10, 22R4703, a resolution by Councilmember Mary Norwood requesting the mayor's designee to install traffic calming devices on Valley Road Northwest between Northside Drive Northwest and Habersham Road Northwest and for other purposes. Item number 11, 22R4704, a resolution by Councilmember Mary Norwood requesting the mayor or his designee to install traffic calming devices on Putnam Road Northwest between Blackland Road Northwest and Powers Ferry Road Northwest and for other purposes. Item number 13, 22R4709, a resolution by Councilmember Liliana Bakhtiari requesting the mayor's designee to install traffic calming devices on Arizona Avenue Northeast, southbound from DeKalb Avenue Northeast, and for other purposes. Item number 14, 22R4712, a resolution by Councilmember Jason Dozier requesting the mayor's designee to install traffic calming devices on Atlanta Student Movement Boulevard Southwest from Walnut Street Southwest to Milton Street Southwest and for other purposes. Item number 15, 22R4713, a resolution by Councilmember Jason Dozier requesting the mayor or his designee to install traffic calming devices on White Street Southwest from Joseph E. Lowry Boulevard to Peoples Street Southwest and for other purposes. Item number 17, 22R4715, a resolution by Councilmember Jason Dozier requesting the mayor or his designee to install traffic calming devices on Beecher Street Southwest from Joseph E. Lowry Boulevard to Peoples Street Southwest and for other purposes. Item number 18, 22R4716, a resolution by Councilmember Jason Dozier requesting the mayor or his designee to install traffic calming devices on Bass Street Southwest from Pryor Street to McDaniel Street Southwest and for other purposes.
So move. Been moving properly second by Councilmember Dozier, who been here the whole time. Please open the vote, Mr. Johnson.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 5 yeas, 0 nays. These items are found favorable. This takes us to item number 12, 22R4705, a resolution by Councilmember Mary Noah requesting the mayor or his designee to make the intersection of Peachtree Battle Avenue Northwest and Peachtree Battle Place Northwest an all-way stop control intersection, to request the Atlanta Department of Transportation to install stop signs at the intersection and for other purposes, and the department requested this item be held.
Been moved and properly second. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is held. The vote is closed. 5 yeas, 0 nays. This item is held. Item number 1622R 4714, a resolution by Councilmember Jason Dozier requesting the mayor or his designee to make always stop signs at the intersections of Atlanta Student Movement Boulevard at Walnut Street Southwest, Vine Street Southwest, John Hope Drive Southwest, Law She Street Southwest, Mildred Street Southwest, SNCC Way Southwest, Milton Street Southwest, and Hilaire Lee Street Southwest to request the Atlanta Department of Transportation to install stop signs at the intersections and for other purposes.
So move. Oh, what? Open it up for Councilmember Jason Dozier, please.
I appreciate that, Mr. Vice Chair. I just wanted to say that you might have saw both between this all-way stop paper and a previous paper for traffic calming along Atlanta Student Movement Boulevard. We are focusing heavily on making sure that the students that are at Clark Atlanta University and Morehouse and Spelman and Morehouse School of Medicine and Morris Brown and the other institutions at Atlanta University Center are made safe as much as possible. We know that about a third of those students don't own a car, don't have access to a car, and a lot of them rely on walking to get to where they need to be. We just had a student hit by a car just a couple weeks ago, and we felt it was important to really focus on making Atlanta Student Movement Boulevard a safe street. So between the traffic calming, between these all-way stops, we're hoping that not only are we going to serve our students there, but we have 2 senior centers over there. We have parks on either side of between Joseph B. Lowry and Northside Drive. But I just wanted to make it clear that this is a direct focus of our office and of our communities, and we want people to know that we believe strongly that safe streets should be for everyone. That's why we're focusing on this. So I'll move or second since you're.
No, you move. I second.
All right, that works for me.
Moved by Councilmember Dozier, second by Councilmember Lewis. Please open the vote, Mr. Dozier. Mr. Johnson. Beautiful speech.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 5 yeas, 0 nays. The item is favorable. This takes us to item number 1922R 4718, a resolution by Councilmember Amir Faroqi authorizing the mayor's designee to execute appropriate documents to accept on behalf of the Department of Aviation an in-kind donation from the Georgia Power Company as part of the Georgia Power Electric Transportation Make Ready program for services to install 32 electric transportation charging system infrastructure at Atlanta Airport Tech Campus, Atlanta Airport Maintenance Building 1, and Atlanta Airport International Gate 44 Side A, valued at $185,460.00 and for other purposes.
Anything from the airport?
B.B. Odori, Aviation General Manager. This is just seeking approval to accept this fund to make ready 32 parking spaces to install electrical vehicle charging station. This money was just made available, and we applied for the grant, and this grant will be awarded to us.
Been moving properly second. Moved by Councilmember Overstreet, second by Councilmember Warren. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. Will everyone please vote? The vote is closed. 5 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable. Item number 2022R 4722, a resolution by Transportation Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee to execute an amendment to renewal agreement number 2 for FC-7692-04, Conrac Automated People Mover System Operations and Maintenance Phase 2 at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport with Crystal Mover Services Incorporated by adding the amount of $2,150,000.00 to be charged to and paid from accounts listed to increase the budget amount authorized by Resolution 19R 4351 and for other purposes.
So move. Anything from the airport?
This is outside of the regular contract approved dollar amount. This is additional funding to upgrade a critical component of our ATL SkyTrain.
Moving properly second. Please open the vote, Mr. Johnson.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 5 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable. Item number 2122R4723, a resolution by Transportation Committee authorizing the mayor as designee to issue task order number FC-10641E-151 for contract FC-10641E job order contracting services with FH Paskin and S.N. Nielsen and Associates LLC for International Terminal Park and Ride Parking Deck immediate repairs in the amount not to exceed $66,306.59. All contracted work will be charged to and paid from account numbers listed herein and for other purposes.
So move. Anything from the airport? So move. It's been moving properly second. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 5 yeas, 0 nays. The item is favorable. Item number 22R4724, a resolution by Transportation Committee authorizing the mayor to exercise renewal option for project FC-119048 rental car center operation and maintenance services at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport with Meridian Urban Joint Venture LLC, comprised of Meridian Management Corporation and Urban Services Group Incorporated on behalf of the Department of Aviation for a term of 2 years effective April 1st, 2023 through March 31st, 2025 on an annual operating basis in an amount not to exceed $11,130,529.34 to be charged to and paid from accounts listed and for other purposes.
Anything from the airport?
The initial term of this contract is coming to an end next year, 2023, and this is to exercise our sole 2-year renewal option for this contract.
So move. It's been moving properly second. Mr. Johnson, please open the vote.
The vote is open. Will everyone please vote? The vote is closed. 5 yeas, 0 nays. The item is favorable. Item number 2322R4725, a resolution by Transportation Committee authorizing the mayor's designee on behalf of the City of Atlanta as successor in interest to IEH Loop Road LLC to enter into an amendment to lease agreement dated June 6, 2017 with C.H. Robinson International Incorporated to provide only a 1-year option to renew with 5% rent escalation regarding certain property located near the Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport at 1075 Airport Loop Road in the city of College Park and for other purposes.
Anything from the airport?
I thought you were going to move this for approval. And so this is a little bit complicated. So we have a ground lease agreement with this vendor known as IEH, dated back in 1976, through October of 2022. However, the vendor approached us last year and wanted to terminate the lease because of the investment that had to be put into this facility. And so we agreed to it and terminated the ground lease in December of 2021. This facility still have 2 tenants in there. And so we took, when their building was reverted back to DOA, we took those 2 tenants with their sublease, and that's the Federal Air Marshal and Transportation Security Administration and a company known as C.H. Robinson. C.H. Robinson have an option for a 3-year renewal option, but in agreement with us, we are only going to renew that for a year because in December of next year, we want to vacate all tenants because this building is no longer feasible for us to invest in renewal and replacement. And so this is to renew C.H. Robinson option for 1 year, and I'll come back later to renew the federal agency through December of next year too, and then we'll vacate both tenants out of the building.
So, second. It's been moving properly second. Please open the vote.
The vote is open.
That's why you're number 1.
The vote is closed. 5 yeas, 0 nays. The item is favorable. Item number 2422R4773, a resolution by Transportation Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee to enter into Cooperative Purchasing Agreement CPS 1230104, Forescout Active Care Solution Implementation Hardware Licensing, Maintenance, and Technical Support Services with IntelliSpring Technologies Incorporated on behalf of the Department of Aviation Informational Services pursuant to Section 2-1602 of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances, utilizing General Services Administration Contract Number as listed herein for initial term 1 year with 3 one-year renewal term options in the amount not to exceed $278,268.09. All contracted work will be charged to and paid from the funding numbers listed herein and for other purposes.
Anything from the airport?
So in light of what happened a few weeks ago when airports were being attacked by millions and millions of unwanted attack to our server, we are continuing evaluating the vulnerability and the strength of our system. And as we discover areas where we need to strengthen, we'll continue to do that. And so this is one area to strengthen our network access and to minimize vulnerability to our servers.
It's been moving properly second. Mr. Johnson, please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 5 yeas, 0 nays. The item is favorable. Mr. Vice Chair, we have no items coming off held today, and that concludes our legislative items for today.
So I would want to make a comment on a paper that is on held on the taxi drivers. We will be holding we will not be filing that paper, but we will be holding a work session, and we have not forgotten about the things that we talked about with that. Other than that, I would like to adjourn the meeting.